Howard, welcome on in. Like I said, we're here to discuss the idea of rebuilding franchises. Right now, there's two organizations I see that are kind of running parallel with this path of getting back to the top. One of the teams being the team that I cover here locally in the Washington Mystics, and the other being the Chicago Sky. Hoping you can kind of help give us some insight for the Chicago team. But they're currently being led by
Yeah.
second year player Angel Reese. And the parallels I'm talking about of they have a young core, fresh coaching staff, new team leadership, focused on the holistic player experience. Do you kind of see those parallels that I'm talking about, or am I crazy? And feel free to call me crazy if you feel so.
Well, I think it's fair to assert that you're crazy without seeing any disagreement between us as it relates to those two teams. I definitely see them as both on the same track, right? And so the question is kind of who's ahead, how are both of these things working? And I think you can point to successes in both cases and let us say reasons to not be concerned as much, but to say, all right, well, this stuff still needs to happen. With Chicago, Angel Reese, this is the biggest thing. Angel Reese has taken a quantum leap forward as a player this year. She had an exceptional rookie year, was already, I would argue, the best rebounder in the WNBA as a rookie, which is just an absurd thing to consider. She is now in year two ahead of people like Tina Charles in her prime. She is ahead of people early on like Rebecca Brunson in her prime when it comes to rebounding. But rebounding is not the only part of her game. She has become a significantly more efficient scorer. She is an elite passer as a big. And so seeing her develop under first year head coach Tyler Marsh is the biggest thing. Is by no means the only thing. Camila Cardozo growing has also been significant, but seeing those two continue to move forward is a critical part of what Chicago needs to get to.
Yeah, a couple of things there. With the coaching staffs of both, we can expand it to the Mystics now too. With both
Hmm.
Chicago and the Mystics, with Tyler Marsh and Sydney Johnson, you're seeing both of those groups allowing these young players to have huge minutes and huge
Yeah.
roles within a team. I mean, we all saw like Angel's been a phenomenal player, and there are some areas of her game that we all know that she has struggled in. But the only way for her to get better is to be able to get these minutes and to get this time on the court with other WNBA players. You could have said the same thing about Sonia Citron and Kiki Iriafen this past year. Turns out they're a little bit closer to that superstardom in terms of being an all-around holistic player than we anticipated coming in. But they are being given that room to grow, which I think is just such a huge part of like fully going feet first, diving into this is what we need to be, and this is our path forward is through these young players. Another
Yeah.
part of it with here in DC, Sydney Johnson and Jamila Weidman, the new GM, have always talked about the holistic player experience and making sure that when players are here, they have a good experience, whether they're the top player on the roster or the bottom player on the roster. And it's funny because Tyler Marsh really spoke to that culture early on in the season when he was hired. And
Hmm.
I had pulled it from his press conference. He said championship teams are won 1 to 12. It's not just about Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso. Although they are planning for them to be the stars of the future for this team, the focus is on the entire group. And I just think that is so pivotal right now in this league as you're having to rely on players from all walks of life and honestly expanding the depth of the WNBA with these new expansion teams coming in. It's not the WNBA of 2015 where you had five starters that you could run into the ground and win a championship with.
It really matters top to bottom, but I will split the difference with you, and I will say that this is also important. What are you seeing out of the two of those players playing together? If these are building blocks, how do they work collaboratively? And one of the most significant things to me is you look at the Mystics, their net rating overall is a minus 3.2, which is, I know that sounds negative, but it's really good. I mean, for it to be in year one, under a new system with a couple of rookies playing such critical roles, minus 3.2 is really solid. It means you're all but holding your own. It's pretty comparable to that 11 and 12 record that they have, right? Well, now you drill in the two-person lineup of Sonia and Kiki. Not only is it the lineup that has the most minutes of any two-person lineup for the Mystics. They're at a minus zero point 0.4, which means they're playing essentially dead even with the lead as rookies. That is a crazy stat to consider. And then you compare it to Camila Cardozo and Angel Reese. They're both impressing individually. But Chicago is a minus 11.6 overall with their net rating. Those two on the floor are a minus 14.7. And what that says to me is, as you're evaluating where these two rebuilds are, Washington, in terms of how it fits together, yeah, ultimately it's going to have to be an entire roster, but it's significantly ahead of Chicago figuring out how it all fits together. And that stands to reason too, right? Kiki and Sonia have, in many ways, complementary skills. Camila Cardozo and Angel Reese have a lot of overlapping skills. There's a lot to figure out, I think, in ways that are neither of their faults. And to be frank, not even really Chicago's fault, right? Courtney Vandersloot was supposed to be the connector, and you lose her early in the season, and they don't really have a point guard at this point. I don't really know why they didn't just sign Grace Berger and play her 30 minutes a game. That's what I would have done if I was Chicago, but I am not Chicago. And so as a result, you're seeing sort of that hard ceiling on their ability to grow this year.